church on Caton's Road. Tell me about that.
That old church set down below our house had been there for a couple hundred years probably. It was an old abandoned church. It had an old piano that still had keys that worked. And I used to sneak off down there and pray. And it was a place where it had been abandoned. People would go down there and drink. There had been killings there, stabbings, and people would go there and make out at night and, you know, that kind of stuff. And there were all kinds of pictures on the wall, but I still found a sacred place there. And I would go there to pray and to write songs. And it was just a very special place to me. As you can only say when you're really telling the whole story about the feeling of finding God there. That's where I actually felt that I got saved, as they say in our religion, when I had really dedicated myself and knew what that thing, because all my family, everybody would go down, pray in the church. I was always, you know, I never felt that I ever made that communication with God, with all those people looking at me and the boys outside looking at me and everybody making me pray. And so that was actually in an old abandoned church is where I felt that I made my connection with God, and I was baptized shortly after that.
You talk to him a lot, don't you?
Yeah, well, God is my friend, and he understands me. He understands all the silly stuff I do, too. He knows I don't mean no harm. I think God would have to have a sense of humor to put up with us, don't you?
Yes. But as I mentioned at the beginning of this program, spirituality pervades this whole book. And you seem like you lean on him a lot. There was a time when you were very depressed, and you really got into an argument with him, didn't you?
Well, at this particular time in my life that I go into detail of a time in my life that people have been very curious about, I was down, I was depressed, I was sick physically, I was overweight, I was going through a lot of things business-wise with my family, and I just felt like, I'm sure I had turned loose of God, but I thought he'd turned loose of me, and I was just angry because I couldn't get answers. I was just, you know, I just was so depressed and down that I really totally understood how people can get on drugs and alcohol or how people can commit suicide. And I think there's times in everybody's life when you feel like that. Unfortunately, a lot of people live that way day to day, but I had never gone down that far to where I just felt like I was at my wit's end. And I just really had some serious conversations with God, and it reminded me a great deal of that story of the footprints in the sand, the two sets of footprints, and saying, well, you know, and that's when I was carrying you, when I said there was only one set of footprints. And that's kind of how I felt, that I thought God had left me and it was just my footprints in the sand. But actually, I came out of that a much bigger, better human being.
You read the Bible from cover to cover.
Well, that took me 2 months.
But it was part of your therapy, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. But I have always read the Bible. I know the Bible very well. I grew up in the church. My grandpa was a preacher, and I've always been very involved in that and work every day, you know, with some sort of scripture. But at this particular time, it was part of the therapy. I thought, well, if I'm going to die, if I'm going to kill myself, I want to read the Bible. I want to know that I have read it from start to finish, not just the New Testament, but I started from the Old Testament, read all the way through the New Testament. And it took me a couple of months to do it, but out of that started, you know, to become this healing and this light and this understanding that I just saw so much about me, so much more about God, so much more about life and other people. And it was really a very healing time, and I've always felt, like I say, that I was so much better off that I had gone through that sorrow, because sometimes I think we just have to be really slapped down in order to stand up and act right. And maybe I had just got a little too big for my spiritual britches or something.